Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me again as I have difficult yet necessary conversations within the autism community. Today's episode discusses sensitive material that may be a trigger for some. I did my best to bring awareness and use this as an educational opportunity while being sensitive to the family involved. Please stick with us to the end as we will be doing an interview with Nick, who is now 21, and we will hear his thoughts as he reflects on what he went through during this experience. This is the grit and grind of autism.
Hey, Kelly, it's so good to hear from you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just so happy that, you came on to chat with me about your journey. We've known each other a really long time. I think like 20 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, believe it or not.
And I think that we had pregnancies that coincided with one another.
How old's your crew now?
All right. So Aiden is 17 and Kyle's 15.
Okay, so yeah, we would have been pregnant about the same time with you with Aiden, me with Hannah. Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought, because I remember you giving me some advice. Like I just have like little flashbacks of conversations that we had.
Hopefully you didn't follow any of it, no.
Why don't we just start by tell us a little bit about your family, and we'll go from there.
Okay. There's 3 children. Sarah is now 31, Nicholas is 21, and Hannah's 17. And there's always been animals. So dogs, cats, a bunny here and there.
I love it. Okay. I can't believe Sarah's 31, by the way.
I feel old. Thanks.
So we're here today just to talk about your journey with your son, your one and only son, Nicholas, who is a rock star. Explain to us a little bit about your journey, like maybe in the early years or wherever it started. Like when did it first occur to you that Nicholas maybe needed some extra support or his needs weren't getting met at school?
Okay, so I didn't know enough to know that there was something not right. We would always say, oh, that's just how Nick is. You know how Nick is. Just, like placate. Like things had to be in a certain order. Things had to, he didn't like certain things. You had to be careful. You had to, he was particular about his food. He didn't really want to play with anybody. He would tell me, go away, leave me alone. At 3, whatever, 4. And he was going to a daycare center, and they were pointing out all these things, basically saying something's not right, but they weren't helping me either. But that Nick was leaps and bounds ahead of all these other kids his age. Mm-hmm. And then we get into the elementary school system, knowing that he's a bit different. It wasn't until 3rd grade that the school psychiatrist, who has, it's more than one school that she has, it's like a whole district, she finally came in and she tested him. And she said that he had the highest IQ of, all of her districts in the past, all of her schools in her district over the past 10 years, the highest IQ that she's tested. And wow. And then she profiled him as autistic. But even with the school psychiatrist documentation, it was a battle trying to get assistance. So then on the other hand, you had the math teacher, when I guess it was like fourth grade, he was in pre-algebra, algebra, saying that my son's cheating because he's just putting down the answers. So here I had the diagnosis from the school psychiatrist, but I couldn't get good support within the school, even in elementary school. And then by the time we got to middle school, it became even worse. And then so I was trying to search for guidance. You know, what do I do? You know, you and I had many, many conversations about where to get support. We found Dr. Zolas. I mean, he was a lifesaver. So he was going to therapy outside of school 2 nights a week. Mm-hmm. And I was just trying to do everything I could to figure out, you know, the best support system. What do I do? What do I need to do? How's this work?
Sure.
Meanwhile, you have a kid who things have to be in a certain order, will only eat certain foods, you can only take him certain places. Because if he felt overwhelmed when he had a meltdown, you were done for the entire day. It wasn't you're done for a couple of hours. The whole day is gone. You're not going to get me back out of that meltdown mode.
Yeah. With the meltdown, we have often talked about this in the past. You learn that when someone is going through constant pressure and demand and challenges, they're trying to keep it together because he wants things in order and he wants to be in control of his world and the world around him. And he can't do that in school, right? And
right.
So then what happens is they either implode or explode, but either way, it's a meltdown because it has to happen, physical reaction to everything that's happening inside of them. And so it's no wonder it took them out for a whole day.
Right. And then the best thing that I had done, and I think you and I talked about this in the past, was teaching them when they're very small sign language.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they're, not verbal right away, at least we could communicate. Mm-hmm. So even when it was really small, it was, he started reading at 4 years old. But even prior to that, so I knew these weren't normal, the usual meltdowns that I had occurred with Sarah, right? I knew this was different. I knew, and then we just kept saying, oh, you know how Nick is. He's just different. This is just the way he is. And we just went along with it. And then the true explosion was middle school. And, middle school on any child is difficult. But with an autistic child, middle school is going to be horrible on anyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We barely got through 6th grade. The teachers, 5th grade, 6th grade, the teachers were frustrated with him. He was frustrated with the school system. I remember they would send home his schoolwork and his homework. So we were doing his school. I was basically homeschooling at night. And if they did give a book report, I had to go to the library, get the same book, and read it. So that way him and I could work on the book report together. And then trying to get an aide to help him in middle school was difficult. The IEP meetings were difficult. You're trying to get support, and they want to battle. Nobody wants to give you any services, because it all costs. Well, okay, we finally went to the Board of Ed and had that meeting. And I said, my son could come up with something that's going to save your child's life.
Yeah.
Where's the support?
Well, I just want to interject for 1 second because all of this is challenging. When you get a diagnosis of autism, it's such a ginormous spectrum. It's becoming bigger and bigger as time goes on. It's all challenging in its own way. What's really tricky, I think, about Nick's situation is that he had always had such a high IQ, and he's involved in a public school system, an institution that already isn't equipped to teach outside the box. I mean, you do have some creative teachers that are doing the best they can, for the most part, I think in Nick's case, unfortunately, he was one of those kids that kept slipping between the cracks because of his high IQ. They just didn't understand his diagnosis. Would you say that's
right.
accurate?
That's completely accurate. I mean, when we go back to the daycare center, they would pull him out of the group setting and work with him one-on-one with the flashcards. They recognized his IQ and had the staff and the ability to take him to the side and say, okay, we're going to work with him a little bit differently than we do the other kids. And what I did with Nicholas, I think it was probably the latter part of elementary school, is I did the bell curve. Okay, remember the wonderful bell curve. So
yeah.
I put that up for him, and I said, Nick, you got to remember that they're teaching the children in the center, okay? If you're way up here, and there are kids who are way down here, and but mainstream school doesn't know how to or has the ability or the resources to help the kids that are way down here and way up here. So we kind of have to do that on our own. And he really understood that. What I said repeatedly, and I'm not a teacher, okay? I don't have a 4-year degree in teaching. I'm just an accountant, okay? I play with numbers. And so here I was trying to teach Nicholas and making sure he's challenged, but and not lose him. And then you're looking at, okay, so not only the education part, but what about all the body changes and how mean kids can be in the middle school? Do you know what I mean?
Gosh. Yes. When you throw puberty into or on top of what they're already dealing with, it's a nightmare.
Right. So you have emotions, you've got somebody bullying, you might get one nice person here, maybe on the bus, maybe in, math class or something, right? Because you're never with the same kids all throughout the day. It never seems to be that anyway. And it just seemed like it was just a battle.
A couple things comes to mind. Like one, it's already an isolating experience. Certain that Nick felt very lonely, even though our kids on the spectrum do tend to enjoy their time by themselves. They're human beings first and foremost, and do crave that relationship or in friendship, even if it's just, one or two. I mean, every kid's different, but to go to school and constantly be changing classes and not having consistency with the same peers and not knowing who you're going to eat lunch with, and it just all of that support, I mean, that had to have weighed on him during this time, and been really hard on top of
it. It was very difficult. Thankfully, the school counselor took a lot of extra time with Nicholas, and because they both had same interest in cars. So a lot of times Nick ate in the counselor's office, or maybe in one of the classrooms with one of the teachers, or he ate by himself. Really didn't have any friends. Nick didn't like to share his work, okay? So even if they had a project where they were supposed to work buddy with a partner or something like that, they didn't force Nick. They gave him his own project. It was less stressful on him. It was just something, I don't know if it's because he felt he couldn't explain himself. I don't know, but they just let him work on stuff by himself.
Which is good. That's at least one reasonable accommodation. Thinking back to that really challenging time during middle school, do you remember incidences where he was bullied?
Oh, almost every day.
And what did that
almost
look
every
like?
day.
What were they doing?
Poking him, taking his schoolwork, knocking his books out of his hands, pulling his hair, flicking his ears. It was constant every day. And you talk about isolation. So what Nick did is he would come home and he has video games, right? So he would hide and play his video games, and he ate. And that's when he gained a lot of weight, which we're still trying to work on getting that off. And it was depression.
Yeah. That was his comfort, video games and food, and that's how he coped. Hey, that's, I think, how a lot of us cope. Food, especially. I can relate to that, right?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're too young to smoke or drink, so what do? You're going to eat, right? Play your video games. And in video games, you get to hide, right? You're in another dimension or whatever you want to call it. And he can control it, you know, if he wants to get on there and play with other people that from other countries and stuff, which he's done.
Yeah. Did the principal or the administration or whoever, like, were they supportive of you and Nick during this time? Did any of the kids, you know, get reprimanded, or were there consequences for the bullying?
No consequences. No, not as much as we complained.
Which is so crazy, because not only as a parent, you know, it's hurtful, it makes you angry, it's your child, it's your baby. You want to protect them.
Right.
I'm going to put my business hat for a second and just say that most of our schools have a no bullying tolerance rule. And I have found over the years, my conversations with other parents throughout the entire state of Maryland, that's not really the case. They're not really enforcing that rule. That's a problem.
You can have all the rules you want, but if you don't enforce them, what does it matter? It's the same with traffic laws. If you don't have officers enforcing it, so what? I didn't stop for the stop sign. So what? You know, it's the same thing with the bullying. So he goes and tells his teacher, so then he's looked at as a tattletale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which can and make the bullying even worse.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you endured that.
It was awful.
I remember when it was happening. It's bringing a lot back now that you're talking about it. I'm just so sorry that it happened, because those early experiences, any life experience molds you. But those early experiences and those developmental years, I mean, it's traumatizing. It's awful.
Truly.
You know, I think it's fair to say, why are parents not having these conversations with their kids? People talk. You know, we're in Maryland, but we're all in communities, right? People talk. Parents know one another. And even if you don't know as many parents as maybe your neighbor because you work full time and you're not around school as often, there's still, you know, forums, whether it be Facebook groups or meetings. You hear things, you know this is happening. Why are parents not having conversations with these kids? When I hear somebody has been bullied in, you know, a certain school in our county, and what happened on the field the day that this kid was bullied, I immediately sit down and have a dialogue with Aiden and talk about it, both from a victim's point of view as well as the bully point. Like, it's not acceptable behavior.
Right.
I don't understand why that's not happening. Conversations are not happening in the community, at home. The schools aren't holding them liable for their behaviors. There's no consequences. Adults are falling short of their jobs to parent. And it's a very generalized statement. I realize that not everybody out there might agree with me. It is your job, first and foremost, to raise your children. And I think, you know, if you don't raise them with loving kindness and accepting of everybody and their differences, it's a huge service.
So we put Nicholas in the Scouts. You know, started out as a Cub Scout. And that's big with them too, right? It's supposed to be like a brotherhood, this good, kind community, et cetera, et cetera. And there was still bullying in there.
That's even a smaller, tighter group.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So I truly knew all the parents. I was the Scout, you know, treasurer, the Scout, Cub Scout treasurer. And, but there were still issues with that. And then, yes, there were conversations and some not so pleasant, but, you know, you have to.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Of course, you're Nick's advocate. Everybody has different parenting styles, but I do think there's maybe a lot of offhand parenting, and maybe it's not their fault. Maybe they have extenuating circumstances and have to work 2 jobs. I don't know, but all I know is what's happening is unacceptable, and no kid should have to endure this.
right. So if my son reaches out and hits somebody because he's been bullied and bullied and bullied, but it's him that gets in trouble, but he hit his tolerance level. Not that I'm condoning hitting, but I'm just saying that because it's not being talked about, then you've got somebody lashing out. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Again, it goes back to that implode or explode.
Yeah, he wouldn't hit anybody. He was just not. That's just not in him. Very, very quiet, very shy, very to himself. But it's funny because, the bus drivers doted on him. There were certain school teachers, certain teachers that I just love Nick. The counselor, it was every once in a while we had somebody helping me to be an advocate for him. But it wasn't as much as you would like. But that would be like one teacher out of 7, out of, 7.5 years of public school system. I might be able to count them on one hand, and that's a shame. But, the parents are unable to talk to their children about, various things like bullying. Then you also have the teachers who don't have resources, that they have, 200 kids because it's 7 classes, How much do you do? And I think one of my conversations with the vice principal was, right now, I looked at her and I said, right now we're at 1 in 89. I said, what are you going to do when it gets worse? And she looked at me and said, Mrs. Lyons, I don't know.
Nick is now 21 and he is no longer in the school system, but the kid who is now Nick in middle school right now, he is among the 1 in 34 in Maryland. Fast forward a little bit to high school, because I know it was a really big struggle throughout all middle school. I think that there was like maybe some newfound hope in the beginning of high school.
He ended up at Hannah More in Reisterstown after a legal battle with the public school system. And I'm going to say battle, it really wasn't much of a battle, not compared to many other parents what they've gone through.
What grade was that?
It was the end of 7th.
Oh, okay.
Because he was threatening to commit suicide. And I was on my way home. I was on my way to school. I left work. I was on my way, and I left you, and I was on my way to the middle school to have an IEP meeting. And, the school counselor called me. He called Nicholas in the hallway and said, Nick has threatened to kill himself. He's got a plan. And I got there, and I'm like, I'm beside myself. So the counselor has Nicholas in the counseling office, and I went down to the IEP meeting. I opened the door. I never sat down. I just lost it and said a lot of mean things, and I went back to the counseling office. I got Nicholas, and I said, I want you to go down there and clean out your locker. And, of course, the vice principal and whomever else, they were trying to stop me. And were like, you can't do that. I said, yes, I can. And I took him home. And, we had to do the suicide watch. And then I got him back to Dr. Zola's office. And just a lot of intense therapy that entire summer. And that's when we hired the legal team. And then we had the meeting with the school board at the beginning of what would have been 8th grade. And because of all the documentation, and that's key for any other parent, keep everything. I still have 3 notebooks from the time he was at the daycare center through high school. I kept everything, all the meeting notes. We went that summer and we looked at different schools. And he decided he really wanted to go to Hannah More, and they approved it. So he ended up getting bused. He had to get up the bus at like 6 a.m. to go to Hannah More in Reisterstown. But he loved it there. And he became one of the school leaders. All the other kids looked up to him. After they got through 8th grade to 9th grade counseling sessions and the group counseling, he ended up being one of the leaders there, counseling younger children. His grades, he always had difficulties in English, okay? Because what he said to me, my brain just doesn't work like that.
Fair enough.
Being creative. He's very black and white, math oriented, right? And he knows a ton of facts. Hey, where did you learn that about the moth? I mean, where did that even come from? Because they'll tell you all about an animal. And so that was always a battle. But again, the teacher there, she understood. She understood autism. She understood what she was dealing with. So she did the writing in baby steps. Work on paragraph 1 or work on your outline. She did everything in baby steps. And we got through it, Grades were good. He graduated. He even tried a college class in that the second to last semester of high school. He didn't really care for it. And I said, you know what, that's fine.
Right.
If at some point you want to go and do a trade, because he does like to work with his hands, especially with cars, I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. But then after high school, he took a year off, which I was completely fine with. And now he works at an auto parts store, and he absolutely loves it. And I have to say that the managers there, especially one in particular, has kind of taken Nicholas under his wing and have really taken time over the past a year, 2 years. I don't know how long Nick's been at the store now, but showing him everything. Nicholas knows how the entire store works, ordering, the sales part. He brings people out. He helps people. He does customer service. He also delivers parts to other stores, or to certain auto dealers and stuff will order from them directly. So he'll make deliveries to those auto shops.
So Nicholas has his license?
Yes.
That's so wonderful. Gosh, he has come so far. And
leaps and bounds.
And
I still can't get him to clean straight.
Of course not. So for the people out there, the school that you were able to get Nicholas into after everything that unfolded in the public school setting and them not cooperating with you for many years.
Yeah.
Again, a non-public setting, so, smaller class size and with who have different abilities, right? So, they might be really, Nick has a really high IQ, but he might just need some more support with English and writing, as you were saying, but the smaller class size is more manageable and tolerable, and he was able to make some friends because it wasn't utter chaos that would send them into a meltdown or have the threats of bullying anymore. And
right. So with the smaller class size, the teachers are, and they also had aides. So you might have a teacher and 2 aides in a classroom of 8. Okay. So your child to adult ratio is much higher. So with Nick, it's not just autistic children there. Some of them actually have some behavioral issues, or some had what you call tics, or they would make noises. So Nick was allowed to wear a headset. Okay. To take out all the extra noise, because Nick is very sensitive to noises. But they were able to work with him like that. And he became very understanding of the other children in the class. So there was, instead of having one friend, I think he had 10. And they actually had a whole table at lunch. Huge, right? This is huge. It's a huge change. So I went from a kid who I had to fight to get on the bus to a kid who was smiling when he came home, and joking and laughing and all this, this huge weight coming off. And it wasn't me teaching him at night. Now, he did have, sometimes if he didn't finish that English project, then we were working on the weekend or something, but at least it wasn't me being the teacher every night for the whole class, all the classes throughout the day, plus homework. So, and then they had therapy sessions, they had group sessions, they had one-on-one. So if he was going through a difficult time, not everything's going to be rainbows and sunshine, not even for adults, right? You have lows. They have support there. So you can go in and talk to one of the counselors and have that support. And the teachers really know the kids too. They have rooms, like extra rooms where they, I don't remember exactly what they're called, but it's kind of like a place you go to chill out. So if you're starting to get agitated or upset, they have these rooms available throughout the school that you can go and rest. Nicholas really liked this school because it looked like a regular school. So you still had the gym, you still had the cafeteria, and you still had all the classrooms. That's why he chose that one. We went to several, but he liked that the best. And I let him make the choice, you know.
Yeah, I think that's so
Again,
important.
big difference.
I think it's so important for our kids to always have a choice. Like, I learned that really early on in my own journey, that, you know, even though Colin is a non-speaker, he still has an opinion, he still has thoughts, he still has feelings. Remember, human first, always. He might not be able to do everything he wants all the time, every time. None of us can, right? But give him a choice. So would you rather have this or that? You know, wear this or that, do this or that, go to this place or that place, go to this school or that school. They should be part of the process and send the courtesy and respect always, that they have a choice instead, to the best of their ability. I realize that not every parent and child is in this situation. Sometimes it's a little bit more complex, and there's heavy medical needs and physical needs, and, you know, sometimes the parent does have to they have to trumpet and make the right decision for the kid's well-being. But to the best of their ability, give them the choice. I think that you and Nick have worked so hard for so long to get to where Nick is and has found his success. I do think that Nick is a success story after going through so much trauma for so long. And it's heart-wrenching to know that he was in a place where he actually contemplated and planned out something such as suicide. But I think that there are a lot of families out there that probably have experienced something very similar, and I think this really, really difficult discussion is going to help those families to see that there is another side. You can get to the other side. It might not all unfold the way Nick's story is unfolded, but never give up. I mean, you were his biggest advocate. You never stopped. They made your life hell for a really long time in terms of school system. They didn't support you. They fought you. They didn't support your son to the best of their ability. Pretty much mailed it in. And it took something horrendous, such as, you know, contemplating his own life to get them to take it.
Right. But I think that was the catalyst where it said, I've had enough. You know what I mean? Like, I played your game and I'm not winning. And you know me, Diana, that's not going to work. We're going to shift this one way or another. Something has to give at this, you know. I didn't know what it was going to be.
Sure. Or how the intensity of it. I always go back to the fact that Maryland, the state of Maryland, is set up as a fail-first state. And it's very frustrating as a parent when I talk to parents constantly, day after day, for years. And the story is always the same. You know, that has to change, because failure is also, it's subjective, right? So what I think is failure might not be what you think is failure. Their failure went on for a really long time, and it took a child to get to his deepest, darkest place to have to say, I can't do this anymore, for them to take it serious. And that is such a disservice. And I'm just really hopeful that these really hard discussions we're having on this podcast helps lay some seeds to create policy change. because the parents shouldn't have to prove the system is failing their kid. I think personally that the system has to prove they're not failing your kid.
Exactly. And you know that I contemplating doing the podcast because for me, it's opening like a Pandora's box of a whole many, many years of struggle and sadness and just stress. Do you know what I mean? Like I have this box on the shelf that I've compiled all this stuff in for Nick. And reopening it has been very difficult, but I want people who have a child who's just been diagnosed or possibly getting diagnosed or maybe this or maybe that, they can listen to this and say, there is hope and there are things that I can do as a parent. And I hope now also that there's a lot more resources out there. And parent support. You and I were going back and forth of trying to find parent support. What is the process I go through? Every child is different, just like you said. There's no handbook,
Right.
What is it? Dear Evan Hansen, where's the map? Where's my map? Right. What I do, and I think is not to give up. Document everything and keep fighting. I mean, thank God for Google, right? Because that's been extremely helpful for me. And you and I sat there many a lunchtime going over stuff and going back and forth and trying to figure things out. And I think that's what you need. Sometimes you just need that other person to sit there with you and say, okay, this is the next step. This is what we need to do. And you need to find that support.
Yeah. It's so important. It's so important. You cannot do this by yourself. You cannot do it without a support system. I just want to thank you. I want to acknowledge that you did agree to talk about this and that was incredibly brave. And I do hope that by doing the service of sharing your story and Nick's story that maybe there's a new step in the healing process. So I hope, and just sort of reflecting on how wonderful he's doing in life right now. I know it's very painful, and I can't thank you enough for being brave and willing and open to having this conversation.
Yeah, it's funny how you kind of like close that piece off of your life. You've kind of shut that door and locked it and kind of put it away and said, okay, I'm not that you're done with it because he's still around and he still has autism, right? It just doesn't go away.
But it is okay to acknowledge you're over that giant hurdle because there are so many in our journeys that, it's okay to be like, thank God that's over. Like, that was hell, right? Right. And you have, and the other point is you have to take care of yourself. Whether it's meditation or yoga or just going to the gym or even working out at home, you've got to figure out, or reading a book, you have to figure out how to take care of yourself. And there was periods in there that I wasn't taking care of myself. And I would get really run down, and I was like, okay, I've hit a brick wall, and I can't hit that brick wall and fall apart myself, because then who's going to take care of him, right? So you have to take care of yourself. As much as we just want to sit there and eat that half-gallon ice cream, you can't. You got to throw some veggies in there, and drink your water. I mean, you've got to take care of yourself along the way too. Absolutely. Very good advice. Thank you for sharing that. And this is like a perfect segue into the lighter part of the discussion, which is sort of finding your light through the journey. I have just a few questions. Some of them you might have already answered, but that's okay. I'm going to ask you anyway, and you can tell me again. What is your favorite book?
I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zuzak. It's about doing kind things for others, and I always say that, we are each other's angels, right? When you stop to help someone or they need, oh my gosh, this person stopped and helped me change my tire. I think we are interconnected and we are here to help one another. And I think that's like the self-satisfaction that I Am the Messenger is that it's self-satisfying to help others, where it may not be, it doesn't have to be a human. It can be you're helping the animals or you're helping wildlife or the trees or whatever it is. You find that everything's integrated.
So what would your dream vacation be? And if you don't mind me sharing, if not, I'll cut it out, but been on some very interesting vacations, some what I think are very just really cool adventures. One being Israel many years ago. She recently got back from Dominican and hanging out in the jungle for a while doing yoga. What would your dream vacation be?
Thought about this. I think next thing I'd like to do is the backpack through Ireland, just to really be able to see all of Ireland.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
What do you do to take care of yourself?
Well, yoga. I don't do it as much as I would like to. I have learned to make my list, but take my time. What's the priority today? I don't have to do the entire list today. What is the priority today? And I try. And, how many ounces of water do you need to drink a day? I try to, every other person, drink my water. Some days I make it, some days I don't, but I'm not going to fret over it. I do try to get some walks in. I do try to breathe. And I think deep breathing is really important. But I also like my heavy metal music. And sometimes my car, if I'm stressed, my car is very loud. So that is my de-stressor, right? Everybody's got to find their own. What is your de-stressor? And mine is really loud, heavy metal music.
You know what? Whatever works.
Whatever works for you.
And then finally, what advice do you have for parents?
Like I said, document everything, have a support system, and make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't have to solve everything today. Every day is going to be a challenge. So you just got to chip away at it,
That's great advice, for sure. Well, that's perfect. I think. Nick, thanks for joining us. It was really nice catching up with your mom, and I appreciate you taking some time to talk with me, too. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good. How old are you now, bud?
I'm 21.
Wow. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a few questions. Start with high school. How was high school for you?
High school was all right for me. Since I went to a private school instead of a public one, the school I went to was more suited to my needs. They were more than willing to adjust for what I needed.
Like, about how many kids were in your class, would you say?
It would be 7 at the most.
That is nice. A lot less distractions, right?
Oh, easily.
So did you have a favorite subject?
At the school I went to, my favorite subjects were science, music, and auto shop.
Oh, cool. So they had, aside from the academics, they had some clubs and other opportunities. That's really cool about the auto shop.
Yeah, they had a full working auto shop.
That's wild. So you actually like learn how to do like repairs or oil changes, or was it more like body shop work?
It was mostly maintenance and repairs.
Okay. That's fantastic. That's huge because, many people do not know how to do any of that. A whole lot of people. So that's an incredible skill to have.
Yeah, I think it's stuff everybody should learn, especially since, everybody has a car, obviously.
Yeah.
And obviously if you fix it yourself, it saves you a trip to the mechanic.
Absolutely. It's a valid point. So is there anything about high school that you didn't like, or maybe that you would have wanted to change?
Give me a sec to think.
Sure.
There were some times where some of the other students would get too obnoxious. But other than that, there isn't really much I changed.
Like, how did you deal with that?
They let me bring in my own headphones and let me put on some music if it got too much.
That's great.
And basically let me listen to music while I was doing my work.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, they said they didn't mind as long as I was doing my work.
So now I'm curious, what kind of music did you listen to while you worked?
I listened about just about every genre. I would say my 3 favorite bands would have to be Linkin Park, Gorillaz, and Caravan Palace.
I just like to ask what type of music people like, because I know a lot of people have a hard time focusing with different types of music, and it's not always what you expect. I know someone who was a musician and said that they could not focus when classical music was on. And I But I guess if you understand music and you know music really well, that could be a distraction in the head. I can understand that for sure.
Right.
But anyway, so now I understand you have a job, which is super cool. Would you just take us through the process? How did you go about getting the job or finding out about the job?
When it came to finding out about the job, I first went online, looked around, see if anybody was hiring. If not, I would send in an application anyway. But the store I got, I found out was just opening, so they were looking for people. And I figured this was like a perfect opportunity to send in my application.
Absolutely. And so what is the job that you're doing?
Am I allowed to say the name of the place?
Yeah, what you're comfortable with. Sure.
I am currently a commercial driver for AutoZone. It means whenever a auto shop sends in an order to the store, I fulfill the order and deliver it to them.
Okay. Now, did you have to get like a specialized license?
No, they're it's just a pickup truck and a regular car, not like a commercial truck or something. So as long as I had my license, I was fine. Okay.
And that's fantastic because you enjoyed auto shop so much in school. So that's like a job for you, right?
Yeah, I love working on cars and driving a lot. So basically at my job, I get to drive and talk about cars the whole time.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you found a job that you like and that you're thriving at that. A lot of adults go through life still doing jobs that they're not necessarily happy with. So to find something so young is really awesome.
Oh, yeah. I feel like the biggest thing is just finding something that lines up with your interests.
Yeah. And actually, that's kind of what my next question was going to be. Did you have any hobbies or special interests? And we know you do love cars. Is it all cars, or do you have a favorite?
Personally, I'm partial towards American muscle cars. I personally have a Ford Mustang.
Oh, cool.
And but I'm willing to work on just about anything.
Okay. I would imagine the learning curve for Okay, for someone like me who knows literally zero about cars, I can put air in a tire. I can put gas in my car. I can check to see if my oil is low. That's pretty much it. Oh, I can put windshield washer fluid in. But other than those, was it a kind of a big learning curve, like learning about different types of engines and things like more complex parts?
I feel like for me, I mean, I've been told that my mind works differently, but it was fairly easy for me to learn all that for cars.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's like once you learn what one part does, you can kind of connect all the pieces to the other parts.
Uh-huh. Is it like a visual puzzle in your head?
Yes.
That's wild. That's so neat. Okay, so do you have any other interest, or is it just primarily cars? Do you hang out with a buddy, or do you have any other, do you like gaming or anything like that?
I do play a lot of video games in my free time, mainly on Xbox One. When it comes to game genres, I play a little bit of everything. Been real into racing games lately.
Cool. The last thing I wanted to ask you about was, I know that you've had a bit of a journey through getting through school, and thankfully it ended really well, very positively and very successfully. And you are doing really well out in the real world and have a job that you really love, and all of that is awesome. I guess I just wanted to ask you if you could maybe give some advice to some of the younger kids who maybe are going through a bit of a tough time at school.
I'd say, like, you know, power through it. Once you're done with school, you're done, unless you want to keep going. But don't be afraid to ask for help, especially if you're struggling. Because I know at one point I would just sit there, not say a word if I was having an issue. But you know, obviously in the subjects I liked, I would take my time with them, and get through it. But if there was a subject I was having an issue with, I would ask the teacher for assistance.
Sure.
Just don't be afraid to ask for help is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Do you feel that might have been maybe a confidence issue for you at the time when you didn't ask for help?
I used to have really bad anxiety because you know I would even refuse to get up to sharpen my pencil because I didn't want everybody looking at me.
Yeah, anxiety is such a hard thing. It really can be debilitating. I mean, so many people deal with it. You certainly are not alone in it. What about some of the kids, the peers, bullies? Let's just call them out. When people are acting like jerks and not being their nicest selves. In hindsight, looking back, do you have any like words of wisdom or advice?
I'd say please don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Go ahead and call the bully out on what they're doing. Definitely tell somebody, some sort of authority, whether it be, you know, a staff member or even your parents. Because if you don't tell anybody, nothing's going to change.
That's right.
If you're the only one that knows about it and you're not saying anything, you're contributing to the problem.
That's such perspective, you know, being on the other side of things. I hear you. I really hope that some kids out there who are listening, or maybe they're not listening, but someone can tell them about this podcast, will have a listen and be encouraged by your advice because you lived through it and you came out on the other side and you're doing amazing and you're thriving and you're happy. It sounds like you've learned so much from your life experience. So I really hope that your advice connects with some of the younger kids and helps them out if they are finding themselves in similar situations. As your mom and I discussed, the schools, the administration, and the parents all must be held accountable to create change, because no one should ever have to go through what you went through.
No, I would never wish what I went through on anyone. I mean, if my words today help at least one person, then I'm happy.
Thank you so much, Nick. I believe full-heartedly it will help one. I believe it'll actually end up helping many with time. But I can't thank you enough for being so open to talking to me And I'm so happy that you're doing so well. You sound so good. You keep doing what you're doing and thriving in life. I think you're going to be an amazing mentor to a lot of people.
Thank you.